All right, welcome to Table Talks episode. What is this? 5? Yeah, I think.
This five,
Yeah,
yes.
this is episode 5. Now with less light. As always, I am Fox, and joining me as always is good old Corruption Points. How are you, my friend?
Hi, how are you? Good. Thanks for
Good.
asking.
Rocking the purple sweater there.
I like it. It's my trademark hoodie.
Oh yeah, purple's my favorite color. So today we're going to be talking about making encounters unique, a bit more than just encountering some bandits and you kill them. So do you want to start us off?
I would like to. Um, I've been recently coming to a problem with my D&D 4th edition group, right? All of them are variously squishy characters. I have a wizard, I have a rogue, and I had a ranger. And in that, right, there wasn't really a way, and all of them spec themselves out to be various non-combat classes, right? The wizard is based very much into illusion. The ranger is all about hunting and stealth, and the rogue was really much about opening things and being that skill-based kind of rogue. And in that, I found myself having a problem trying to give them an encounter that wouldn't just outright kill them. And obviously, I could give them an NPC that's sort of beefy, but then what exactly am I giving them a fight for other than to just give them a fight, right? None of them really want to be in a fight. That's not really their idea of a good time. So I started to theorize about how I can make a dungeon that has all the abilities of a dungeon, that crawliness, that beat you down, the ability to use various skills that you wouldn't normally use in a fight, and put that with this group. So I got into this theory of the dungeon without the dungeon, right? I want to make a dungeon-esque encounter, a dungeon-esque scene or setting that doesn't require my players to be in a dungeon or to be fighting things. And I started to really think about this, and that's more or less what I'd like to talk about today.
All right. All right. So I guess yeah, that's an interesting thing to do. I mean, we've talked about GM tips for beginners and stuff like that, and I'm pretty sure we've mentioned before. You should always give your players an option to either take a fight head on, come up with a creative solution, or they could even run. And it's not necessarily something you should reward or punish your players for. But I mean, obviously, you want to reward them for very creative thinking. So so yeah, do you want to talk a bit more, go a bit more in depth in what you had in mind for this particular party, or any events that or other players that you've used these kind of tactics for?
Yes. So Dungeons and Dragons is very much the quintessential dungeon game, right? It's very much for me, at the very least. I grew up on Dungeons and Dragons, and I grew up on there being dungeons that you walk through and dragons that you eventually fight. And those being the highlights of the game, right? I want to fight big things. I want to go in deep, scary dungeons. I want to be able to do these things together. And I have a group that is still playing D&D, but isn't interested in those aspects. They're interested more in being able to use their characters in a fun way, being able to use their characters in a specific way, and in that, I wanted to give them opportunities to do that. One of the things that 4th edition did really, really well was establishing that an encounter does not have to be a fight. And that's the first thing I want to start with. Not all encounters have to be combat. There can be encounters that are entirely skill-based, there can be encounters that are socially based, and I'll get into that in a second. But 4th edition, and I think it's the Dungeon Master's Guide, gives you a series of traps that can be treated as encounters, right? You can use your dungeoneering check to turn off this alarm that doesn't make this whirling blade trap spin. If you have a fighter, they can just hack it apart with an axe, and this is how much HP it has, and this is its AC, and things like that. Right? I don't like 4th edition in that the skill challenges were like you need to make 3 saves out of 5 tries or something like that, and it was always awful. I don't particularly want this to be a roll off, and that's where 4th edition again went wrong. But it should be a matter of allowing players to use their abilities in a way that can highlight their potential strengths, rather than giving them just a room where now you're fighting some goblins. There's a rogue can always stab things, and a wizard can always cast magic missile and things like that. But what if you have someone who does not want to do that? What if you have a party that isn't interested in fighting? They're more interested in the politics or the background or the city settings than the dungeon settings, and that's where I am. So in Dark Sun, which is what I'm playing, there's a giant city named Tyr, and Tyr is more or less the focal point of the setting. Everything that goes through Tyr is the capital. And in that, I wanted to make them a dungeon out of that city. I wanted to make them a position that they would be in where they have to crawl through the city and go through all these different challenges, sort of like you would in a dungeon, but laterally without fighting rather than downward with tons of the combat to sort of wear them down. And in that, I sort of treated it like I treat Shadowrun. It was less about designing fights, or you're going to walk into this room and then you're going to fight these goblins, and you're going to walk into that room and you're going to fight these kobolds, and more about here's a situation that you have to solve. How do you do it? And then I react to that.
Right. So it's kind of interesting. You say all this because I played a lot of RPG systems. Like I said earlier, I haven't actually played a game in D&D in about 3 years. Shamefully, I admit that. But I've been playing a lot of other systems where more often than not, encounters are very much not necessarily fighting, but you have all these different options and stuff like that. The charisma stat is not so much a crutch. I think we've talked about more, but it's an actual form of strength that you can use in certain role playing situations to make counters unique. So that's something that I think Savage Worlds does very very well with its simplicity, is the fact that it says, yeah, you have a couple of fighting stats, but really there's only I think only 2 or 3 skills that I can think of in the basic rule book that are actually put towards fighting. Everything else is based off to those little kind of things that might be nice for problem solving and stuff like that. Do you think that you know certain games like D&D, for a GM, it's a bit more difficult to do those straight up non-fighting things? I mean, you said 4.0, but what about something like Pathfinder or World of Darkness?
Yes, Dungeons and Dragons is not a narrativist game unless you really want it to be. There are games that do narrativist play a lot better. And Dungeons and Dragons is a great system for really anything you want to do in it, but for narrativist play, there are better systems. And that's really what I'm approaching, right? In D&D, the idea that you go into a dungeon and you fight a dragon. But the narrativist side of that isn't really put to the forefront of D&D for most GMs, especially in the books, especially in the source books, that is. In that, I wanted to give my players a more narrativist feel with the Dungeons and Dragons system. There are way better systems for narratives games, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The World of Darkness is great for narrativist. Burning Wheel is fantastic for narrativist play. Things like that, And those are those heavy, like, simulationist sort of, this is my story and this is what I'll do in it kind of game. And it's, D&D is not that. But when I'm starting my players, this is the first game they've ever played, they wanted to play D&D because it's the one they've heard about, right? Which is sort of the strange culmination. You have this foundation, this building block of tabletop in Dungeons & Dragons, and then you have these things that aren't really portrayed or not really designed for in that kind of game, but it's the kind of game my players are looking for, which again brought me to this. The idea that my players wanted to make a very character-driven, very story-driven game without any fights, and they picked D&D to do it in, isn't the greatest idea. But I liked it, and I wanted them to go with it. I could switch them to a different system, but they want to play D&D, because it's that game that everyone's heard of. It's like the big tabletop game,
Right.
Which is strange. And I wasn't really sure how to switch them, so I just sort of adapted the game.
Yeah, and that's again one of the great things about doing tabletop or anything is we can rewrite the rules. You can't rewrite the code in a video game, but we can kind of nitpick the rules so we can adjust it. So I mean, do you want to give an example of what these kind of encounters are? I mean, I got a story that I would like to tell. So Team England's game. Fortunately, we weren't able to live stream. There were some weird technical difficulties going on, but I actually have visual aid because Jamie, who is one of my players, is a wonderful artist. And in case you missed it on the blog, this thing is the most evil thing you'll I think I've ever brought up. But basically, this creature is a demon. It's a little budgie, so he's about an inch tall, and he's a greater demon that kind of that sits on the shoulders, and he basically corrupts it, and then Seb freaks out. But essentially, what happened is the plan was to collect each of the wizards from the College of Magic, and it was supposed to be like a grand sacrifice. Now Seb's fiance was the last wizard they needed to complete that circle. So instead of Bobo, becoming revealing his true form, and immediately becomes a fight. I was like, no, you know what? I'm gonna mess with them a bit. So what Bobo did is he was on a bird owner's shoulder, and instead of flying over to her to land on her shoulder and start taking control of her to get her to her final position, I decided to make Bobo jump off, go on the ground, and then he starts walking with his little budgie legs. So at that point, they're all like freaking out because they know what this thing is, but it hasn't revealed itself. So they're all like I think Seb WWE like elbow dropped the bird. It came back to life. Like they cut it in half twice, and they're just like freaking out because this thing won't die. And eventually, they got him to reveal his final form. And basically, what happened is, and again, this is to make counters more interesting, is immediately start to go after Jamie, who was a war dancer, so she was kind of like a really quick, light armored hand-to-hand, so she was kind of like a barbarian. And she said, I would like to make a notice check to see if there's any pipes or anything I can hide in. And I say, yes, you notice it. And she's like, I want to try and dart for it. And I was like, all right. So she did make it, but the demon tried to grab her, but his arm got caught in the pipe. And at that moment, I was just kind of like, yeah, that would be kind of that's like a cool extra way to make your counters a bit more interesting. I mean, do you have any sort of things like that you like to do?
So when I was playing Shadowrun, right, it was very much my players are going to do whatever they'd like to do with whatever tools are available, and because it's Shadowrun, that's every tool you can possibly think of. So I would give my players. So the first encounter I ever gave my players, there was an auction for various really magical pieces of, or not magical, really famous pieces of stuff from the ancient past, right? So it was like Michael Jordan's shoes, and Bruce Lee's nunchucks, and Houdini's straitjacket. Like that kind of stuff was being auctioned off in this place. And I told them, all right, guys, you have 2 days to plan. Make a plan to steal this stuff. I'll give you all of my information, which would be the security, the people around it, the times it's going off. But keep in mind, there is other teams who are doing the same exact thing, and they're going to be doing it faster than you are. So you have to, in times of the essence, make a great plan. And they more or less spent a day and a half bickering about what they're going to do, and then shot the place up. But the idea was, I'm going to give them more or less an open field, a black box, right? And they're going to be able to do whatever they'd like in it to make sure that they can use their characters to the best of their ability. I'm not giving them a specific check. I'm not giving them an AC to hit, that kind of thing, I'm giving them this open field and say, it's your character. How do you go about solving this? And that's what I mean about encounters that are not fights, right? Here's a situation. I want your character to solve it. What tools do you have that will do it? I'll help you do this in any way I can with the information I'm willing to give you. Back to D&D, in Dark Sun, I did more or less the same thing. I had all of my player characters are evil. They're all evil aligned. So I had a person walking through the city to the king's court, more or less. There's no king in Tyr, but the high court. And the guy was coming from the very top right. It's the very bottom left. It's a really, really long stretch of road. And I said, there are heroes in this city who are attempting to kill this bad guy before he gets to the court. And you're evil, so your job is to make sure you assassinate all the heroes before they kill off the guy trying to get to the end. But I wanted them to do it in a way that made it look like it was all accidents. I didn't want them to outright just kill these people. I wanted them to assassinate them. Like, I want you to hit that fruit that's hanging off that tree that's going to hit this wagon, that's going to spur that bomb, that's going to blow up this building, that's going to crush that guy. I want that sort of Rube Goldberg-esque accidental kills. You know what I mean?
Chandelier.
Falling chandelier, yes. So, again, right, all I gave them was, it's a city, you know exactly what's in each district, how do you go about doing this, right? And I gave them, to make this interesting and to make it more GM-y, I gave them 3 possible routes that the bad guy would be traveling down, and 3 possible routes that the heroes would be attacking this bad guy on. And it was their job to find which route he's going down, kill off all the heroes without making them look bad, and get the bad guy to the throne room. But, and again, This is not a normal fight. This is not a straight up fight. I could just send them into the town square and say, fight these 8 guys, they're waiting for the bad guy, and then they would have that cool fight, and I would add some things, and there would be merchants everywhere, and stuff like that. But I wanted them to use their ideas. I wanted them to use their abilities. I wanted the ranger to be stealthy and tracking. I wanted the rogue to set up bombs and things. I wanted the wizard to illusion his way into various people's minds, you know? I wanted them to use their skills rather than their attacks to complete this encounter. And for the most part, it went off really well. 2 of them died, but that's not really the point. The point was getting them to be themselves rather than having them stab stuff.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that. I mean, again, I keep talking about my 2 Savage World games, but it's amazing, how much it reminded me of what jamming is like. The fact between Team Hammer and Team England, how the parties are. Team Hammer, the 2 main people that ran, was a cowardly guy who decided that he wants to become a witch hunter when he killed an unarmed chaos creature who wasn't even fighting, and the other one is a very very young high elf pacifist. So clearly they're not made for encounters. Like they can, sure they can kind of hold their own if they can work to their advantage, but for the most part they do everything they can to avoid fights and stuff like that. Whether it's they try to talk down the aggressors or doing stuff. And then meanwhile, there's Team England where they just draw their weapons. Literally, okay. So I got other fan art, which is you might be a bit familiar with this corruption point since you played this campaign as well with Toxic. You know
Yeah.
exactly what's going on here, but more or less that was the representation of their thing. They ended up killing all the cultists, by the way. They pretty much just discovered who the leader was, and then they just started pretty much massacring them one by one, kind of in stealthy fashion. Or no, what happened is they lured them all down so they could get to the ritual, and they're like, "Good, we got them all in one place, and we can murder them." So that was more or less their strategy. But again, it's amazing how you can run the same game twice with 2 different totally sets of people, and how different they'll come out.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's the best part about games is that no matter who is playing it and what they're doing, they will always have different decisions. And that's really, and this comes back to the crux of it all. When you're fighting something, right, you really only have 2 decisions, if I'm going to be very, very general with this, and that's fight it or run away. You can continue to fight until you win, quote unquote, or you can run away because you can't win, quote unquote. And the idea that if you have an encounter that is just a fight, you have either fighting it or running away. You can take hostages and you can keep people alive and all this different stuff, but very general. You can fight it or you can run away. Whereas if you have an open theater of what you can do with your players, you can do many, many, many things, which leads to much more empowerment than just fighting it and running away. You can do any amount of things. You can do any amount of skills. You can take any amount of actions, because it is not limited to the idea that you have to be fighting or you have to be not fighting, running away. And that's really what I'm coming down to, right? You have all these different players that can destroy your painting in any specific way. But in my group, we decided that the painting could not be destroyed and just kind of ran away and hid on the roof. Whereas England group decided to destroy the painting and be awesome about it. And there are hundreds of other different kinds of things they could have done there. Both of us could have failed before finding the painting was evil, right?
Right.
And I love those fail states. I love the idea that every single piece of that was a lead up to the climax of destroying the painting. Where, again, if it was just like demons are coming, fight them, you can fight them, or you can run away. And that's what I mean about the encounter that's not just an encounter. I want an encounter that is more than just fighting. I want an encounter that highlights more than just combat abilities. And I'm not saying that killing things is boring. I love being a fighter in D&D. I love being a fighter in most systems. I like punching things in the face. That's one of my favorite things to do in tabletop. But it's a matter of finding that stickiness, that player empowerment for players that don't want to just fight stuff, and giving them an opportunity to shine. And I like that a lot.
Right. And previous episodes we talk about, we gave jamming tips and stuff like that and how to handle situations. I also think, a rule of thumb with being considered if you are a good GM or you're a bad GM is there should be no one solution to a problem. I think if you make an encounter and you say no matter what, they have to fight you know, crime lord, you know, Chuck or whatever, you know, it if it has to end in an encounter where they're in a room, there's like a fiery circle, like okay, but at the same time, don't you think there should be something more to it? I don't know. Do you ever come across a situation where you just kind of want to make the encounter just one thing? Have you ever done that before when you're just like, there's one way to do this encounter, or are you always very, very open about such things?
So get this, right? I was playing Shadowrun, and in the game, I came to a point where I gave them more or less a Kobayashi Maru. There was no real way to win. It was about sacrificing the least, right? And in that, I was like, great, you're going to take one of these three options. Either, to generalize again, you either kill your sister, or you sacrifice your best friend, or you completely ally with the bad guy, right? Or you fight the bad guy, and then your best friend leaves, and your sister still doesn't like you. Or it is just like the situation where you have these three motivational factors, and all three of them don't want the same thing, right? And it was awesome because my combat-ready, optimized cyber ninja decided to talk his way out of it, right? And I was like, all right, let's do this, right? He talked down all different parts of the encounter. And I was like, I thought you were going to go into this and I thought you guys were going to lose, and instead you talked your way out of it and won the most you could possibly win. And I asked him, like, how did you come up with this? What were you thinking? And he said, I decided that I couldn't just Batman this and get the one thing ready to kill off all the different parties. I wanted to Jean-Luc Picard this and talk my way out of it. And in that, I decided that I couldn't completely win if I fought, but I could completely win if I thought a different way around it. And I was like, I was done. I was over. It was done. Right? I wrote this. I actually wrote this on Corruption Points. I'll bring up the post later. But it was the greatest thing I've ever seen a player do. Right? It was like, here's a player whose only motivation is to fight stuff. And like, they built a character to fight stuff. They have the situation where they're supposed to be fighting stuff, and they're like, no. I can't win if I fight stuff, therefore I'll talk my way out of it. And I, as a GM, completely prepared them to just fight something. And it was just the best, most amazing, unbelievable like player moment ever. It's like top 10 of my GM moments of all time. I loved it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, this is actually a topic I want to do for a later show, but doing, how well video games are converting to the tabletop. And I was actually talking to Jamie earlier. She actually bought me the Mass Effect trilogy because she's an awesome friend. But we were talking about certain RPG moments, and I bring up Fallout 3. My character in Fallout 3, I gave him no fighting skills. He was like a doctor, a really charismatic doctor. And I remember there was just that part where you get to the the radio station or whatever, and you're looking for your father. I'm assuming everyone here has played Fallout 3, if not kind of spoilers. But wow, I keep doing my GM thing out of anyways. So,
Out of habit.
So you get to the point where there's this dude, I think his name is like Big Dog or something like that, and he's like, "Yeah, I know where your father is, but you got to do some things for me." I'm like, "Charisma check." All right, no, I'm gonna tell you exactly where your father is, and then it gave me full experience, and I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome." But no, I mean, I love encounters like that where you can kind of talk your way out, come up with creative solutions, no light spell or a falling chandelier type thing. So yeah, I mean, do you have any other suggestions for making counters a bit more interesting? I mean, do you somehow come up with ways to make fighting encounters a bit more interesting? Like, what if they are engaged in a fight, but they don't necessarily have these fighting abilities? I mean, is there anything that you do? Like, does
Yes.
the wizard hit them with books?
Yeah, and that's literally what happens in most of my first 4th edition campaign, right? I was playing with people who had never, ever played Dungeons and Dragons before, had never played tabletop before. And they had no idea what they could do, and they had no idea what they could not do, right? Which is the best part. I had players who had never been told no, right? And in that, I didn't want to tell them no. So we were fighting vampires in a cave. Because vampires, why not? It's easy. I wanted to show them, like, here's how encounters work, and here's how fighting mechanics work, and here's some vampires, you know what vampires are, right? So my rogue was like, alright, I have an idea. I want the fighter to throw me on the ceiling, and then I want to break open the ceiling and have sunlight shine through and kill the vampire. And I was like, yeah, do that. make a strength check to roll to throw him up there, and then you're gonna grapple one of the stalactites, and then you're gonna like stab the ceiling with your knife or whatever. And he did that, right? And like I was like, well, that didn't go how I thought it would go, but sure, I'll have it, right? And from then on, I was like very much making different like situations where I thought they would just fight them, and they decided not to just fight them, right? They fought a baby black dragon, and because I wanted them to fight a dragon, and they're like, all right, I have a better idea. Why don't we take it over that volcano guys that we saw a while ago, kneecap it, and make the guys shoot up into it? And I was like, yeah, why don't you do that? So they kneecapped the dragon on the geyser and just shot like lava up into its stomach, and it blew up, right? And I was like, this is amazing. They did not at all use like he didn't use like riposte strike. You know what I mean? He didn't just like sit around and use uncanny dodge 6 times in a row. The fighter wasn't just using power attack, right? They were thinking of situations where they could put their encounter to make it go well for them, and I loved that. It was really much a matter of giving them the tools and not saying no to their creativity.
Right, and of course that actually comes with having a really good GM. So
Oh, thank you.
it all depends on that. So yeah, I guess a little tip there is just you have allow your players to be creative. Again, I'll say it a billion times. It's all about having fun, coming up with a story, and just hang out with some friends. So
It's very easy for a GM to fall into the trap of I need to make things as hard as possible, right? I do this often. I make things way too hard, and it's there's a style of GMing that is very much like there's a burning building and you're going to run in and save all 6 people, but of course you forgot the cat, and that's like that style of GMing is like you can win, but you can't always win all of it. I think that if you take yourself away from just fights, right? If you take yourself away from just like win solution or lose solution, you get those more fuzzy areas of win and fuzzy areas of lose. You get those gray areas of victory and loss, right? Which makes for a better story. You have players that they may have gotten all 6 people out of the burning building, but they forgot the cat, and then you'll be able to bring that up later, and you'll be able to use that as a story seed and things like that. In an encounter, again, it's very much you win or you lose, and it's the partial wins, giving them just enough of a win, giving them just enough of a loss, so it sticks with them to sort of grow their character and give them basis. I like that kind of encounter more.
right, definitely. Okay, so is there anything else you want to talk about? I mean, we're coming up to a half hour
No, I'm good,
on this
actually.
topic, or I can start making announcements
No, go
for
ahead. Please make
for
some
uh,
announcements.
for Dice Troop. Okay, so we're a non-profit organization. Blah blah blah. I've said it once. I've said it before. We have a donate button. Blah blah blah. Feel free to donate to us if you like our shows. We'll always provide them for free. But no, you guys have been awesome because at this point I'm not losing money, so it's pretty awesome. So I'm actually doing these shows for free now. So I appreciate anyone who's donated. I know there are a few of you in chat room who have. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Next announcement is I will not be around for the next 2 weeks. Some personal stuff with moving and stuff like that. I'm moving into a new apartment and all that good stuff. So pretty much we got a couple things that might happen. So first off, I should say that we are looking for more people to be part of Table Talks. So I know some of you have expressed interest in stuff like that. So I believe that Corruption Points will be learning to broadcast in the near future. So yeah, why don't you send him a message, because he's head honcho, man. He's head honcho of Dice Troop RPG. He
I'm officially a big deal.
you're officially the boss. You need a tie now.
I do.
You need a tie and a top hat. So yeah, if you guys are actually interested in being on the show again, you obviously need a webcam and a microphone and a stable internet connection to be on. So if you got that and you know you can talk, yeah, send a message to Corruption Points. We'll probably be doing some post chat, and we'll be around testing to get Corruption Points all caught up on how to broadcast and stuff like that. So I guess you're getting a little more of us than usual. So if that's it, anything else to say? You got anything planned?
Yeah, so the Corruption Points Adventure game, which is getting a better name soon, is going to be in full swing very, very soon. I'm going to be starting to take applications for people that would like to join. Again, all you need is a microphone. We're going to be doing it over Skype. There's no real reason to do video because we won't be seeing much. But all the information of that is posted under my blog in the Corruption Points Adventure game, and there's going to be a lot more details about that to come. Hopefully, that'll be another fun show we can do.
Oh man, I'm actually really pumped for that. I'm going to be the first application. Well, actually, some of these people are somehow have better access, are quicker with Dice Troop stuff than I am, which is kind of incredible. But yeah, I'm definitely excited for that. Yeah, we got some new shows planned again this summer. So Dice Troop After Dark is another thing we're talking about. So we can talk about stuff we find goofy in games. See, I want you to give that no light rant, but I want you to be drunk. I want full on no filter.
Um, we'll talk about that later. How's
Yeah.
that sound?
All right. Sounds good. So, yep. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next. Or Corruption Points. We'll see you next week.
See
So
you around,
take care.
guys.